Okay. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started for this week. Thanks for coming out again. Appreciate it. Just really quickly, Jeanne wants to go over the discussion that we had last week about Rule 18-2. I don't know if you guys all saw in the email what the USGA recommends, but basically there's still going to be that decision process as the rules are put out there to determine whether or not that ball was moved by natural causes or was indeed moved by the player. So there is still that decision that just, I guess the result and whether it's a penalty has just changed a little bit. So, Jeanne, if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think this next summer, most of the players, if the ball moves on the green and they call you over, the first thing they're going to say is, "I need you cause it to move," which means they're going to play it from wherever it went to. However, if it's rolling 5 or 6 feet closer to the hole, I mean, it's still up to you. And you're just going to have to take the slope of the green, the wind, whether it's raining, everything into consideration. If it's a perfectly still day and you're on a flat green, probably he did cause it to move. And just make sure that you make him understand that even if in some way he did, there is no penalty now. But you just still have to determine whether that ball's going back or whether he's going to play it.
Well, the penalty still applies if it wasn't accidental, right?
Yeah. But non-accidental means he leaned over and picked it up.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about that. These are going to be all accidental.
Kyle?
You're going to say it's all accidental.
Yeah.
This is Steve Parks. I was working the 17th hole at Eagle Eye last year. And a gentleman hit the ball to the green, went up, marked the ball, put it back down, walked to the top of the hill on 17. And by the time he got to the top of the hill, the ball had rolled 5 feet, 6 feet down. And he didn't do anything. It's just that was the condition of the green in that particular situation.
Sure. No, that's a great example of where it would just be play it as it lies.
Yep. And he was closer to the hole. He was 5, 6 feet closer to the hole.
Okay, I really wanted to talk about bunkers. Over the year, maybe I'm not the only one because Craig has thought of this too. It bothered me that there was a rule for everything in the rule book except for bunkers. I thought, why did they just not make a bunker rule? We've got one for loose impediments, and water, and casual water, and instructions, and all that, but there's no bunker rule. So I started looking, and I found rules or decisions dealing with bunkers in 17 out of the 34 rules. So I figured probably they just decided it was too hard to make a bunker rule. So the closest thing we have is Rule 13.4. So that's what we're going to talk about. I call this the bunker rule. Interestingly enough, the word bunker only appears once in the rule because it talks about hazards. And for those of you who are just starting out, here's a perfect example of why you must know the definitions. Anytime in this decision that you see the word hazard, it means bunker or water. If it means only one or the other, it'll say bunker or water hazard. If it just says hazard, it means both. So this rule does deal with ball in either water or sand. Look at the first line there, except as provided in the rules before making a stroke. Over the years, I've used this example in my rule seminars so many times because players will come up and say, I just can't find anything, I don't know where it is. Well, part of their problem is they don't know the definition. Perfect example, ask somebody to find anywhere in this rule book where it says if you drag your club back in the bunker and hit the sand, it's a 2-stroke penalty. Because it doesn't say that anywhere. Here's the rule that governs that. But it says, except as provided the rules before making a stroke at a ball. Before making a stroke. So you have to know what a stroke is. What's a stroke? It's the forward movement of the club with the intention of hitting the ball. So if you take your club back and hit the sand, that is before making the stroke. I mean, that's really technical. And the average golfer just doesn't get that.
Well, that's what Darquist did. She went back with the club and she hit the sand and she got a penalty for it. Then she
That's
shouldn't have got a penalty then.
No, yes,
no,
because
she
that's prior to making the stroke. The backswing is prior to making the stroke.
So the forward.
The stroke's a forward move.
The
Yeah,
stroke is the downstroke. So anything that happens before you start down is not part of the stroke. So that's where the two-stroke penalty comes from, that sentence right there. Except as provided in the rules before making a stroke at a ball that is in a hazard, whether a bunker or water hazard, and with that having been lifted from the hazards, may be dropped or placed in the hazard. We got into this week. That is, that word may. It doesn't say is going to be dropped. It says may be dropped. So look at 13.435.7.
What page? Page 203. All right.
The player's tee shot comes to rest in the bunker and he lifts his ball after deeming it unplayable. Before he selects an option, he removes a loose impediment. Since this action took place while his ball was lifted, it wasn't in the bunker, was he in breach of the rule? And it says, yes, he was. The prohibitions apply when a ball is in a hazard or when a ball having been lifted may be dropped or placed. Under the unplayable ball rule, 2 of the player's options require him to drop in the bunker. The player would incur the penalty even if he subsequently elected to put a ball into play outside the bunker under stroking distance. However, the player would not incur the penalty if before removing the loose impediment, he indicated, I'm going to take stroking distance. That is really important, the may. It may be dropped in the bunker. Now, this came up this week because I had one of our members send me a question, a rules question by email. He said a player is in the woods and he declares his ball unplayable. He doesn't lift it, but he measures 2 club lengths all the way around the ball. I mean, you're standing there watching him measure this 2 club lengths. Then he starts picking up loose impediments. We all know that's okay, right? You're allowed to remove loose impediments where you're going to drop. Then he pulls out some weeds. Now, wait a minute. Is that a penalty?
they're not loose impediments.
Yeah, he hasn't even picked up his ball yet.
But he's already said, well, he already said it's unplayable, right? That's the only thing he
But
said.
he hasn't
Okay.
said where he's going to do which option he's going to take or anything.
That may be an area he's gonna drop in, though.
It might be, but that's under Rule 13.2, and not wording that word may is not in Rule 13.2. It's only in 13.4.
But the weeds are something living and growing. They're not
Look at
detached.
13.2.
So the only way it's a penalty is if he decides to drop it in that 2 club length area.
Yeah.
If he
that's
does
what
that, then he's penalized.
Kyle and I talked about this before I answered the guy, and I thought, you know, he's not operating under Rule 13.4. He's operating under Rule 13.2. So I went back to 13.2. We know he's not allowed to improve the area in which he is going to drop a ball. He hasn't said, I'm going to drop it here by removing anything growing or fixed. So I called Ben Kimball. This is what I called Ben about, at the USGA. And I talked to him this morning about it, and I said, well, what is it? He said, I have no idea. And he said, I talked to 2 or 3 other people to find out the answer. But I said, I bet you're going to find out it's not a penalty because he's not required to drop it there, and he may not even have to drop it there. He hasn't even lifted the ball.
So he's taking away that option, though. Taking away.
Well, if he does drop it there, he's going to get it. Yeah.
So if you were an official or a referee would you say to him, by the way, if you now drop it in this area,
I would
you'll
warn
be
him, yeah.
Before he,
Absolutely.
before he pulls it?
After.
No, before,
Before you choose.
after, once he's pulled out the weeds, I would say, all right, now, you've declared your ball unplayable, and you have 3 options. If you do drop it here, you're gonna get a 2-stroke penalty for improving the area in which you are going to drop it.
Further back using the option on outside of that
Yeah,
half circle drop area, he would be okay.
yeah, unless, he
If he
improved
could.
his line of play. I mean, you'd have to take that into consideration, the size of these weeds and how far back he went
Right.
and all that. But if he took stroke and distance, I think he's home straight. I don't think he's done anything wrong.
Could we have that taken care of, please? Someone with a saxophone.
Somebody's piano
No
lessons.
jazz music during the rule sessions, please.
Now, does anybody see any other? I mean, I'm gonna have to still pursue this with Ben. I know he'll call me back once he gets an answer and let you know. But do you see how every word means exactly what it says? The 13-4 says he may drop it. I mean, 2 out of the 3 options require him to drop in the bunker. So in the case of the bunker, he's gonna get the penalty whether or not he drops it there or he goes back. But that wording is not in 13-2.
Hey, Jeanne,
Yeah,
what about in the situation where you were talking about lifting it in the bunker, removing the loose impediment and taking stroke and distance, but that where the loose impediment was lifted was in his line of play? Not an issue, right?
what was the last thing you said?
The loose impediment was in line of play, not an issue, correct?
When he takes the stroke and distance, let's say that loose impediment that was lifted is in
Oh,
front of him.
it's not a loose impediment. That's never a problem. It would have been the weeds.
Yeah, okay.
If he only took it back a few feet and he pulled out cattails, I'd say he's improved his line of play. But if he just pulled out small weeds and he takes it back 80, 100 yards, I would say, no, he's not really improved his line of play.
No, I'm more talking about like he's cleaned up the bunker and now he's taken it back, and that bunker with the loose impediment removed is in his line of play.
It's perfectly okay to remove loose impediments from your line of play.
And in the bunker as well, right?
If your ball isn't in the bunker, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one question that I've also asked, because everybody assumes that 13-2 says you can't improve your line of play, but it doesn't say you can't improve your line of play at all. It says you just can't improve your line of play by doing any one of those 4 things that are listed there.
Oh.
Everything else is okay. You're allowed to remove loose impediments. Okay.
Okay, Gene, before we go on, back to 13-2, this is Tom Hamilton.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Hi.
I didn't know I was going to talk about your ruling.
Well, I'm glad my ruling was correct. And what happened, this was at Egypt Valley. The player was in the woods left and unplayable, and he left the ball when he asked me about loose impediments. I said, yes, you may move any loose impediments where you plan on dropping the ball. And in doing so, when he picked up a rather large stick, he also pulled up a clump of grass that had been entangled in the stick, and pulled it up by the roots. Well, he looked at me and I looked at him, and at that time, I told him that if he chose that option, he would be assessed a penalty. I hope I was correct in doing that.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, what is my other option? I gave him his other options, and that's when he chose stroke and distance.
Well, Carl and I both agreed with you, and we've asked Ben at the USGA, and he hasn't gotten back to me yet. I sure hope he rules that way, because I don't
Me too.
know any other way to reason it through.
Well, actually, so the fellow had to re-tee, but he did get a bogey on the hole.
He did hit a what?
He got a bogey on the hole.
Gene, what if he, you got a 2 club length arc, what if he chose another area of that 2 club length arc where that,
No,
that area
any area that he had done it in, I would say, yeah.
Well,
he-
in the fairway, you can improve your fairway if it doesn't improve your line of flight by, say,
You don't know when you
stepping down
drop
on
the
a
ball,
pivot
it's gonna roll though.
few feet ahead.
That's correct. I mean, he could have gone 2 club lengths left or right, but if the ball were rolled down the slope, it might have, I mean, he had still pulled the grass up by the roots when he pulled the stick, when he moved the.
I'm not so sure it matters as long as it's in that arc, because the Rule 13
That's
says
right.
you cannot improve the area in which he is to drop or place the ball. So how big is that area? I think it's the whole area.
The whole area. So I was correct in
Yes.
warning him before he made the drop that he would be assessed a penalty.
Yes, that was very good.
But didn't he incur the penalty as soon as he
No, his ball was, he hadn't picked his ball up
He
yet.
didn't touch the ball. Suppose you said nothing to anybody and just your ball's in the woods and you walk in there and start pulling out weeds. And then you just,
Yeah, if he didn't
what would
lift
you
the
be
ball.
penalized for? Yeah.
Had he
I'm
lifted,
sure he's okay.
had he lifted the ball,
If he had lifted it, maybe not,
maybe.
because this says the area in which he is to drop the ball. He's not required to drop the ball there. The other one says may, meaning it's a possibility. I think that's the difference. That's how technical it gets.
So he can lift the ball and take his 2 club length measure around there and say, well, no, I can't do it here. I'll have to
Yeah.
take one of the other 2 options.
Yeah, think about it. Going into the woods, you know your ball's unplayable, you pick it up, you clean it, now you start trying to figure out your options. So you might measure all this stuff. No, I don't like this, so I think I'll go here, or I'll go there. I don't think until you put a ball in play. Now, once you put a ball in play, now you can't change. I think that I think Tom did this right. I was not gonna use your name, Tom. Okay, now, except as provided rules before making this stroke, the player must not test the condition of the hazard or any similar hazard. You have my little half a quiz
Yeah.
somewhere? All right. Okay. What constitutes testing the condition? How about this one? Taking a stance, leaving the bunker, returning and filling in the previous footprints.
That's not good.
Yes.
Yes. How about placing your golf bag in the bunker?
No.
It's okay.
Nope. Kicking the ground in the bunker?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Making a practice swing, touching the sand in a similar bunker?
Yes.
Yes.
Mark, not taking a practice swing, but touching the sand. You can take a practice swing as long as you don't touch the sand. Marking the position of a ball and touching the sand as you do it.
That's okay. It's almost hard,
That's
impossible not
okay.
to.
Leaning on a rake in the bunker while waiting to play.
That's okay.
That's not good.
That's okay. Leaning on how about leaning on a club?
Nope.
No.
No.
If you're using it for balance, though, it's okay.
The balance, but not
If you keep yourself from
If you
falling.
keep yourself from falling.
But
that's
you can't
different.
just lean on a club, but you can lean on a rake.
Yep.
Touching the sand with a towel.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay. All right. If you don't, let's see, the harbor town, oh no, that's something else. Okay. What is testing? The decision is 13-4/0.5. There's a whole bunch of things in there. You can't touch the ground in the water. Touch the ground in the hazard or water in the water hazard with a hand or a club. So that is worded that way. A caddy can certainly take the player's towel and dip it into the water in the hazard while the player's ball is in the hazard. It just prohibits you touching water in the water hazard with a hand or a club. If a player is playing a ball in a bunker and during his backswing hits casual water, no penalty. It has to be the ground in a bunker or water in a water hazard. Doesn't say anything about water in a bunker. And the third prohibition is touch or move a loose impediment lying in or touching the hazard. So I have made a note here to look at 13.4.4, 13-4/4.
Page 193.
Yep, the player takes a practice swing in a water hazard without grounding his club, but his club touches some long grass. Is there a penalty? No. See, this is, do you remember the ruling at Harbortown?
Yep.
That player took several practice swings in a hazard and was brushing a lot of long grass that was growing in the hazard. Perfectly okay. Then he touched one loose pine needle. Loose impediment, 2 strokes.
See, that was Furyk, wasn't it?
No.
No.
It was Brian.
It was a Brett.
Pretty sure. Yeah. It was a Brit.
Brian Davis, maybe?
Yep.
Yeah.
The touching the casual water in the bunker is 13-4/7. I'm not exactly sure. I guess the ball could be in front of the puddle and the player chooses to play it because there's no place to, he's not standing in the water and he brushes his club on the casual water. Don't give him a penalty. He's allowed to touch that casual water. Now you get into the exceptions. There always are exceptions. Provided nothing is done that constitutes testing or improves the lie of the ball, there's no penalty, and you just need to, you don't have to memorize these, but you should know that there's no penalty if the player touches the ground or loose impediments in any hazard or water in a water hazard as a result of or to prevent falling. I've even asked a player who has, were you falling? Were you in the action? Oh no, I was fine. You know, you do everything you can to keep him from getting this penalty. In removing an obstruction, so if he touches the sand when he picks up the rake, that's okay. In measuring, who's away. In marking of, retrieving, lifting, placing, or replacing a ball under any rule. That's all okay when there's you're placing the clubs in the hazard. So a caddy can put the whole bag down in the water hazard. Or a bunker. Then this one is a little more complicated. Exception 2. At any time, the player may smooth sand or soil in a hazard provided it's for the sole purpose of caring for the course and nothing is done to breach 13.2 with respect to his next stroke. That used to say it with respect to subsequent play of the hole. And so if the player wound up back in that spot that he's raked after 2 or 3 more shots, he still had a problem. So it's only his next stroke, and it is basically his line of play that we're talking about. As long as he doesn't do anything to improve his line of play or the area right around the ball. If a ball played from a hazard is outside the hazard after the stroke, the player may smooth sand or loose soil in the hazard without restriction. Now, there's a bunch of decisions here. 13-4/37. Page 205. Oh, 204. So once you play out of the bunker, you can clean up the bunker and rake it and everything. The prohibition is only when the ball is in the hazard or when it has been lifted from the hazard and may be dropped or placed in the hazard. Now, go back and look at 13-4/9. This was new just a couple of years ago. Your ball's in the bunker. You can go in there as long as you're not improving your line. Let's say it's a big wide bunker and your ball's in the left. And that some dog's been flying around on the right, you can go over there and clean that all up while your ball is in the bunker, as long as you're just caring for the course. And you don't do anything to breach Rule 13.2 in respect to the next stroke. So basically, you're talking about the part of the bunker that's between the ball and the hole. You can't fix.
Help me understand why under 13-4 at the top, the 3 exceptions, number A, test the condition of a hazard or any similar hazard, is different than if a player makes a stroke from a hazard and the ball comes to rest in another hazard. 13-4 does not apply.
It's because of Stewart Sink. It was a Stewart Sink ruling a number of years ago where his ball was not in a fairway bunker, but he had to stand in the fairway bunker to play it. All right? He played it and then raked that fairway bunker, but the shot that he played from there wound up in a greenside bunker. Now his ball is in a bunker, and he has now tested a similar bunker, and he wound up with a 2-stroke penalty. And they wanted to eliminate that.
Okay,
And Jeanne, is it?
So is this a definition of distance, or I mean, if I've got
Look at number 3. If the player makes a stroke from a hazard and the ball comes to rest in another hazard, Rule 13.4A testing does not apply to any subsequent actions taken in the hazard from which the stroke was made.
so that basically once you've made the stroke,
Yeah.
you've tested it, you've deemed to have tested
Yeah.
the sand, and you're not going to be penalized for it.
Yeah, that's exactly
But
right.
the old rule was, right, if I hit it from one bunker, fairway bunker into a greenside bunker, I couldn't fix the bunker that I
That's
hit
right.
from before.
Yeah.
Right.
Now
Yeah.
I can,
Now you can.
right.
Yep.
Or you could also take another practice swing in the bunker you just left.
Yep. Yep.
But if you left it in that same bunker, now you got.
Well, no, but if you hit it into another bunker, I can take sand, hit the sand, and do whatever I want.
Yep.
Once
Because
I've
nothing
done the
you do
first-
in that bunker after you get out of it can be called testing. Yep.
Dan is never in bunkers, so he doesn't have to worry.
What's that like, Dan?
Look at 13-4/11. Players in there searching for his ball in the bunker, and he makes numerous footprints. He subsequently finds his ball in the bunker. Before playing his stroke, may the player or his caddy smooth the footprints. Exception 2 would allow the player to smooth the footprints provided it is done for the sole purpose of caring for the course, and nothing is done to improve any area, in other words, your line of play. Therefore, any footprints made that have worsened any area covered by Rule 13.2 must not be smoothed. So if he's made a mess of the bunker, there's parts of the bunker he can fix. He cannot fix anything on his line of play or in the immediate area of the ball.
We're taking a stance and stuff like that. That's pretty
Yeah.
close to the ball.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yep. 13-4/13, I think is important that you know, where is that?
Jeannie, is that covering a situation where the ball plugged in the bunker and you couldn't see the ball because it was
No,
plugged in?
no, that's a whole different thing.
That's a different thing, right?
We'll get to that. 13-413. This comes into play for people flying down south because a lot of times there's just tons of pine needles and bumpers, and there's no way you can even get to your ball without touching the loose impediment. And this says it's okay, provided the loose impediment was not moved in making the backswing and the lie of the ball or area of the intended stance or swing was not improved. So if you have to walk on leaves or pine needles or something to get to your ball in the bunker, and you haven't improved the lie or the line of play, that's okay.
And if you have no choice in the matter but to stand on some of that stuff while you're making your stroke,
That's it.
Should be
You
okay.
just stand on it, and you're obviously moving it.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
So, if I'm in North Carolina,
Yeah.
it's the bunker's full of
Yeah.
pine needles,
Mhm.
and including surrounding my ball, can I walk up and clear my stance area of those pine needles before I take the stroke?
You're allowed a certain amount of digging in when they can't take, they
Well, I'm
cannot
not talking
take.
about digging, I'm talking about scraping them away.
Oh,
and
no.
then digging.
No.
No, you can't clear them all away.
That's not what this says.
so actually just told you.
It says-
So accidentally.
Accidentally.
Yeah.
If you stumble and kick them out of the way.
Put your, oops.
Yeah, you call it, right? In fact, in the racer.
Use your club to right yourself if you fall.
This is creative wrong.
Or you took a rake into the
Or you,
pine needles.
Yeah.
you dragged your rake through a linear.
That was just
And this next little note, this last little note under this rule is so important, and they just stick it in here as a note. And how many times does this come up? At any time, including at a dress or in the backwards movement for the stroke, the player may touch with a club or otherwise any obstruction, any construction declared by the committee to be an integral part of the course. And here's the part: any grass, bush, tree, or other growing thing. It is amazing that that was just put in a little note, because so many players will say, you know, they're in the hazard, they're in tall junk, the ball is way down there. They don't have to hold their club above that stuff. They're allowed to put it down. They can't ground it, but they're allowed to touch all of that growing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they can take practice swings in there as long as they're not weed whacking.
Gene, where were you reading from? What number?
The note,
Just a note.
the last,
The
the last thing in the
Page
rule.
173.
I didn't print it.
No. Go back to 173.
Okay, I have some more decisions here. 13-4-15. This answer was changed a few years ago. This could happen out there. Competitor's ball is in the hazard, he removes a loose impediment in the hazard, and he causes his ball to move. What do we have? Don't look at the answer. What rules are you talking about?
Ball
Causes ball to move. What rules are that?
18.
18, right. And he's left with a loose impediment. 13-4.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, Kyle talked about 2 rules being broken.
One action, two.
1 action, 2 rules. So what happens here?
Well, that's one action.
It's the
1
worst.
action, and he's broken 2 rules. So what's his penalty?
2 stroke.
2 strokes,
Yeah.
right.
Give-
4. Now it's only 4 if, read the answer. He gets the 2-stroke penalty, and he has to replace the ball. If the ball is not replaced before the competitor makes his next stroke, the failure is a separate act, and now he's going to get 2 under Rule 18 and 2 under Rule 13. Perfect example of the thing Kyle was talking about.
Where you read that from?
That's under 13.
Page 197.
I've been following you along on this.
It's under the note.
No, it's in
First
the book.
page, the note.
Decisions.
Oh, I'm in the decision 13-4/15.
Page 197.
Page 197.
Now, let's look at 13-4/18.
passed it along with that signage.
This is an equity decision also.
I had one, but I passed it along with that signage.
And the next one, 13-419. Not 18 and a half, but 19. Balls of A and B are in the same bunker. B's ball is farther from the hole, B plays. And his ball comes to rest nearer the hole than A's ball. Is A entitled to have the bunker restored to its original condition? Yes.
Yeah.
Look at that thing. It says A would be entitled in equity to restore the bunker to its original condition by raking or other means, even if this involves an area covered by Rule 13.2 with respect to its next stroke. Because the fellow competitor has messed it up.
What if his lie improved? Does he have the obligation to
To
change
recreate it?
back his lie, or is it, or he can just play it as a lie, a new better lie that he got?
How would it improve?
I don't know. Let's say that there was I don't know, like a tree overhanging, and the guy behind them hit a shot and nailed the tree, and the branch fell down, and now he's got a clear view. I mean, obviously, that one's maybe not the best example, but an example of.
Well, if there were two balls in a bunker, and mine was the forward ball plugged, say 6 or 8 inches, and I asked, or you asked me not to mark it, and you hit your shot, and my ball unplugs. Do I have to
What do we
recreate
know
that?
about what happens if your lie has been altered?
Just recreate the lie
Recreate
as
the
best as
lie.
possible.
So you have to recreate the lie in the bunker.
Is that always push ball? You gotta just alter that, you lift it up. That's right.
If somebody else disturbs your ball and hitting their own ball, you still have to replay your lie back to what it was.
Yeah, if somebody plays your ball,
No, not plays their ball
plays
and
your
hits
ball.
your ball because of the follow through, because you're that close. You'd probably want to
Yeah,
ask
you
him to
have to
lift the ball and get
recreate
it
the
out of the
lie,
way.
but you do not, let's see, through the green, you don't have to replace loose impediments because they're not considered part of the lie of the ball, but you do in a bunker. Yeah, you do. In a bunker, you have to replace everything the way it was. I'm not so sure about the improvement though. Obviously, you'd have to replug the ball. You have to recreate the lie.
That one, your ball's moving, right? So maybe if your ball moved and it was caused by something other than, natural forces, you would move it back. I would think. I don't.
But in the case where you said the branch, there's no way to recreate that.
Sure.
But in these certain situations, if the original lie of the ball to be placed or replaced has been altered, his ball has come out of its original lie. It's got to be put back. And the lie recreated. So what were the others?
The other one would be if I get a tree in my way and then the guy 20 yards back.
There's nothing you can do
Right.
about that.
So that one you just
That's just the way
good
it
luck.
is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
With the ball in the bunker, it's the same thing as if you know or figure you're going to hit the other opponent's ball and your follow through or down, whatever, you can ask them to lift their ball.
Yep.
And still they have to recreate that lie when they put their ball back down or whatever it was when they picked it up.
Let's say both of them were in a footprint. And your ball and my ball, it's your turn to play, and you remove the whole footprint. Okay, now you've played. Now we put my marker back where it was. We see, the footprint's gone. We break it, we put a footprint, we place my ball in the footprint. Yep. In the bunker. It may be the difference that you're talking about through the green. And this is in a hazard.
Hey, Jeanne, the one thing that always confuses me is on 419 where it says the bunker may be restored by anyone. If A and B are in a bunker close to each other and then A has to hit first, and B would insist, oh, let me rake. To me, that's testing, but why do they allow him, says by anyone?
Well, I don't know why they decided to say that. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
It's an opportunity to test the same.
Sure it is.
I think the reason they say it is because you might not like me, and I might not like the way you.
Well,
You might have just piled up some sand in front of my ball.
well, you're entitled to your own, yeah, okay.
See, I think that's why, now that I think it through, I'm entitled to the lie my shot gave me, so I'm entitled to fix this.
I think you'd want both players staying there while that's done, and then both agree to
Yeah,
that.
probably.
Doesn't that also go to the, golf is sort of a game of honor, usually, if, you're not going to do anything really bad to cheat, so
Yes,
I would hope anyway.
of course. Look at 13-428. Competitive balls in a hazard. Takes a practice swing, and in so doing moves loose impediments, and he touches the ground. He also bends a shrub. Now, don't look at the answer. What has he done?
Two different things. Two acts.
Two separate rules. 13-2 and 13-4. So how many stroke penalties?
4. 2 for each one.
Just two strokes, single action, just broke two rules, right?
No, it's two different actions, right? Two different actions.
They're different acts.
Are they different
The
acts?
practice
Took a
swing
practice
touching the
swing.
ground is a swing, and the
But then-
separate act is with his hand breaking the
Yeah.
ground.
So you get 4, right?
Two, he's
He
gonna
bends
get
his hand.
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't read it, really.
He always remember 13-2, they're sort of the same, dealing with the same, but they're very different rules. So they almost have to, I wish they'd given them different numbers. They're two distinct rules.
What number was that you're just doing?
13-4/28, and then one more, 13-435.5. Player plays from a bunker and the ball lands up on the grass bank. Before the ball comes to rest, the player swings his club into the sand, after which the ball rolls back into the bunker.
What rule is
13-4B
that?
prohibits touching the ground when the ball lies in the hazard. Does he incur a penalty under this rule even though the ball was outside the bunker? No. I love this. However, if the club was still touching the sand when the ball was in, he gets
Kyle, what decision was that?
That was 13-4/35.5. It's on page 203.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Now you're all becoming bunker experts. Let's talk about what happens when you have an obstruction in the bunker. So that's going to be under 24-1. If the ball does not lie in or on, and when I first started studying the rules, I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. What about up against? Is that in or on? And I was told in the rules school, if it has a spot on the golf course, if it is touching the golf course, it is not in or on. All right? So that should be your determination whether the interference, whether the ball is in or on or just has interference with it. If the ball does not lie in or on an obstruction, so this is generally going to be a rake in the bunker. The obstruction may be removed. If the ball moves, it must be replaced. There's no penalty, provided that the movement of the ball is directly attributable to the removal of the obstruction. So the same things happen, same ruling as when you're walking up to mark your ball, and it says that there's no penalty for that. But if you drop your putter on it on the way, you are going to get a penalty. But if it's directly attributable to marking the ball, there's no penalty. The same thing here. You're also allowed to inadvertently touch a few grains of sand with your hand when you're removing a rake. That's okay.
Gene, can you go over that, the in or on
Yeah.
again?
If the ball is touching the golf course, it's up against a rake, but
Right.
it still has a place on the golf course, then it is not in or on the obstruction. But there still is interference.
Right.
It's a free drop.
So you're still allowed to
Oh,
get
yeah.
and remove that
Yeah,
obstruction.
but the procedure's different.
Okay.
If the ball lies in or on, the ball has to be lifted. The obstruction removed, and the ball must, in a hazard, be dropped as near as possible to the spot directly under the place where the ball lay in or on the obstruction, but not near the hole.
So if you're not in a hazard, you can place it.
Hmm?
If you're not in a hazard, then you can place the ball.
You can also place it here if you've marked it. I was just gonna get to that. There's a
Not
decision.
through the green, you can't place it.
No,
You drop it.
yeah, you don't place it on the,
Only on the putting green.
on a putting green.
On the putting green, you place it. But you said it has to be.
When the ball is in, yes, not if it's up against.
Yeah. When
Okay,
you're reading that-
let me just talk about a ball that's lying on the sand up against a rake with a branch on top. All right, now the player knows he can move that rake. But if he moves the rake, the ball's gonna move and the branch is gonna move. Just make sure when he walks up there, you just tell him, don't touch anything with the rake. Move the rake. But before you do this, coin the ball. Now you can stick a T, even if it's in the bunker, but I usually still use the word coin. Mark Wilson uses the word coin the ball. Lay a coin down and mark the ball in the bunker, because if it's marked, you're gonna be able to replace it. If you don't know where it was, you're gonna have to drop it. Nobody wants to drop in the bunker.
Mm.
So lift the rake. The branch moves, the ball moves. Now, you've marked the ball, you just place the ball back and put the branch back on top of it. No penalty. That's
So you
it.
have to put the branch back.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
So
That's what I thought. I just-
Yep, yep. Now, if the ball lies in, see, the procedure is different because you've lifted the ball. So now you're gonna have to drop it.
It was here, the ball, it says if the ball lies in or on the obstruction, the ball may be lifted. You said has to be lifted.
Well, if you're gonna take the
It doesn't
lead,
make sense that you could not lift the ball if it's in the obstruction. You gotta get it out of there somehow.
well, yeah, but they hesitate to use the word, you have to lift it. Because he can play it if he wants to.
Okay.
Could be on a piece of paper or something.
Yeah.
Could be on.
It could be on the rake.
Yeah, they could be on the
Yeah.
rake.
Yeah, but it could be on a piece of paper and the guy decided, hey, I don't want to drop this ball on the bunker. I'm going to play right off the paper. He doesn't have to take the lead. That's why they use the word may. Okay.
So if it's on the paper in the bunker and he chooses to play the ball,
Mhm.
he can ground his club on the paper because it's not the sand in the bunker.
That's right. And right there, at any time, including address or active movement for the stroke, the player may touch with the club or otherwise any obstruction. So you can ground your club on the paper. You can touch an obstruction. You can touch a bridge over a water hazard. You can touch anything integral. Okay, an equity decision 1-4/5. Oh, I think that's the one I just talked about. And then go to 20.
How about on that last one, how about if there was sand on the paper?
Ah.
Oh.
Is that cool?
I don't know the answer to that.
But is the paper a loose impediment or obstruction?
The paper is an obstruction.
Because it's man-made?
Yes.
Okay.
Go to 23-1/7. A loose impediment in a hazard close to a player's ball in the same hazard is moved in the process of the player lifting his ball under a rule that requires him to replace the ball. Is the player required to replace the loose impediment? Yes. This is in a hazard, so that would be bunker or water. Then look down at the one beneath it, 1/7.5. Loose impediment close to a player's ball line through the green is moved. When the ball is moved in circumstances where a rule requires the ball to be replaced, in other words, you ask me to pick it up because it's interfering, or the ball is in the process of being lifted under a rule that requires it, you're checking it to see if it's unfit for play, whatever. The loose impediment was in such a position that it is likely that the player's ball would have moved if the loose impediment had been removed first. Should the player be required to replace the loose impediment prior to making his next stroke? No. In such circumstances, the player is not required to replace the loose impediment. That just blew my mind the first time I read it. This is through the green, this decision.
Right.
The one above it is in a hazard.
Which two are those again?
13-1/7.
23.
23-1/7.
23-1/7
Page 360.
and 23-1/7.5.
Thank you.
For some reason, through the green, they do not consider a loose impediment part of the lie of the ball.
Well, 23-1/8 though is kind of similar. That's where you're not allowed to.
It's still through the green.
You're allowed to move it, you'll get penalized.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing behind it is that through the green you can move loose impediments, but in a hazard you can't. So that's why that would need to be back.
Well, under 7-5, you're not going to be penalized.
Right.
Under 8, you will be.
Let me read it.
Because that's when the ball is touching a loose impediment, and the ball is likely to move when moving a loose impediment.
Right.
These sometimes, I think these things are absolutely diametrically opposed. If you can keep a pencil on that one and go to rule 20-3B/8.
B or 3B?
20-3B/8. A's ball lies in a bunker with a loose impediment immediately behind the ball. The ball B is a bunker who lies near A's ball in the same bunker but farthest from home. So B asks A to lift his ball, which A does. B's stroke now moves the loose impediment that was behind A's ball. Is A's lie considered to have been altered as a result of the removal of the loose impediment? No. Although the loose impediment may have affected the lie of A's ball, loose impediments are not part of the lie of the ball as contemplated by Rule 30-3B. Therefore, A is not required to replace the loose impediment before his next stroke. If he did replace it, there would be no penalty. The same answer would apply on any part of the course. That's the one that blew my mind. It says loose impediment is not part of the lie of the ball as contemplated by Rule 20-3B, which is
Page
lie
313.
These all seem contradictory, don't they?
Yeah, I'm confused.
So am I.
Oh, the rules
Too many lawyers at the USGA.
Too much time on your hands.
Well,
Isn't that kind of what we talked about earlier, in the sense that so we all thought that we have to put the loose impediment back.
Yes.
This is saying that we don't have to.
and because it's in the bunker.
But only because he lifted the ball. Had he left the ball there and that loose impediment moved, would he be required to put the loose impediment back? Because it says in reference to Rule 20-3, which is why being replaced or when you lift to replace. So if the ball is just sitting there and that loose impediment moves, is he obligated to move it back, or she obligated to move it back?
No.
I don't think so.
And I think this one is moved by somebody else in 20-3B/8. See, the loose impediment was moved by another player's stroke.
Right.
And I think under those circumstances, you are not required to put it back. That's what I'm getting. When it is moved by somebody else,
That's the only difference between these two.
I think.
If somebody else is in there with you doing something. Not that adds any sense to the whole situation.
And yet the 23-1 7.5, there is no other player involved with that either.
And Jeanne, where's the definition that a loose impediment is not part of the lie of your ball?
It's in decision 20-3B/8. On page 338.
But that only says in reference to Rule 20-3.
Yeah, lie altered.
But it's not saying that that's the case across the board.
No. Well, no. Well, I think when I talk to Ben, I will have to talk to him about 3 more decisions here. Just make a note of what they are. It's that one that's 20. And then there's the 23-1/7 and 7.5.
Gene, that's one question.
Yeah.
In 7.5, it says the ball is in a process of being lifted. The ball is moved in a circumstance where a rule requires the ball to be replaced. So if there's 2 balls in there and, A is in front, B is in back, B is away, B is going to play, A can mark his ball.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then it appears to be 7.5 would apply. If you go back to 20-3B8, in that case, okay, if I didn't mark it, then it's okay. But if I did mark it, then the 23 applies. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, in 20-3B, yeah, a ball is lifted. But in both of them, the ball is lifted.
Yeah, they're both lifted.
I just don't know. That,
Then I'm okay, because I knew I didn't, but I should.
no, I think we're gonna have to clear this up. I don't know that this happens too often in our, does it happen a lot in our tournament?
Our players hit it down the middle every time.
Yeah. Right. You all are not working the same.
Right.
You didn't work any net tournaments, did you? You need to work a few net tournaments, find out where they hit it.
Well, let's look at 24-2.
Jeannie, what's the other one?
What?
We're talking about here where the player did lift his ball. Is there another comparable one where he didn't lift it? What happened?
No, there.
Because I thought you were talking about that. I'm not hearing all the numbers.
23-1/7. Is moved in the process of a player lifting his ball. They're all lifting the ball.
Right.
You know, all of them.
Because A doesn't have to lift his ball if he doesn't want to, right? But I don't know why. The ball is probably going to
Yeah,
go
if
chase it.
somebody asks you to lift your
It's a
ball,
request.
you have to.
You don't have a choice
Yeah.
on a request.
Well, let's go on to immovable. The only thing I can think of I don't think I've ever seen a sprinkler man, so culvert or a liner in a bunker would be an immovable obstruction. Steps, that's right. Okay. If you need to take relief in a bunker without penalty within 1 club length of and not nearer the hole than the nearest point of relief, the nearest point of relief must be in the bunker and the ball must be dropped in the bunker. Or, under penalty of 1 stroke, outside the bunker, keeping the point where the ball lay directly between the hole and the spot on which the ball is dropped with no limits how far behind. Always make sure that the player knows that there is that option to get out of the bunker, but it's going to cost him more. Now you get into the changing relief options here. No, you're not going to, that would be unplayable. Let's wait till we get to the unplayable. You're not going to, there isn't any. There are 2 relief options here. Let's say he measures his finds his nearest point of relief, measures his 1 club length and drops the ball. Now he doesn't like the lot. Then he said, okay, I'm now going to take a penalty stroke and drop out of the bunker. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, you can't.
Sure.
You can't.
You wouldn't.
Because he has put a ball into play.
Yeah. It'll be a penalty. He wants to move him again.
You can't choose one option, put a ball into play, and then change. Now, if you haven't put the ball into play, you can. Let's say he measures his 1 club length, and he's standing there looking at it, and he tells you, he says, I'm going to drop it here, we'll measure this, and he says, no, I'm not going to drop it here, I'm going to take, he can still do it, because he hasn't put a ball in play. So now he can take up 1 stroke and drop behind the bunker. But once that ball leaves his hand, he drops it in the bunker. Now, he has to stay with that option.
One of the things that
unplayable.
Well, from there.
For a penalty. Yeah. Excuse me, Steve, the question was, could he then, he's dropped the ball and gotten a really bad lie under the 1 club length rule?
Right, right.
Can he now declare it unplayable? Yes, for an unplayable penalty.
Yeah. One of the things that I do, and I know several other people also do it, is you try to get to the player before they do anything.
Yeah.
And you say, what? So many people just reach down to start to pick it up. And I tell them, stop, don't do that. Let's look at your options first.
Yes.
And because more often than not, it's not going to be a problem. But I've run into several situations where if they were to pick it up and I tell them that this is your nearest point of relief, in long grass, I remember one specifically right behind a tree. And the person says, well, I don't want to drop there. And I said, well, this is where you're going to drop or you're going to play it off the road. It was a road. They were on it was a cart path. It was a gravel cart path. And I said, yeah, you can drop, but you're going to have to drop right here. And they go, no. And I said, well, then you're going to have to play it. And, they're very receptive to that, not having to take a penalty. But it does, every now and then you have to look at where they're going to drop first before they actually pick it up.
Yep, that's a good point. Stop them before they get the ball in their hand.
Yes.
Okay, going to Rule 25.
Before you move on, I wanted to clarify what we were just talking about. The person takes the drop in the bunker, it plugs. That was a free drop when he dropped it, but then you said you can declare it unplayable and then drop outside the bunker for a penalty stroke. But then you also said you had to play it. You lost that option. So I'm a little confused there.
I think I heard what you said. You said he's taking free relief from an obstruction, and he drops in the bunker and it plugs.
Right.
Can he then declare it unplayable? Yes. But he's going to take a penalty, and he has 3 options now.
And they're all in the same bunker.
But you also said
2 of the 3.
prior to that, you had said once he takes that option and drops, he must play it.
No. He can proceed under another rule at that point. You don't have to have a shot in between each rule.
So you can take the free drop and kind of get out of the bunker with a penalty anyhow, right? Because you had originally said you had to play it.
No, you can't proceed under that rule. He can't drop it behind the bunker. His only way of out of the bunker is stroke and distance under the unplayable ball rule.
But he would have had to take a stroke to get out of the bunker in the first place anyhow, right?
Yep, except he's not going to be dropping. He originally had the option of taking a stroke penalty and dropping right there behind the bunker.
Oh, it's the distance that added to it.
It's the distance. If he chooses not to do that, he takes his free drop in the bunker and it really plugs. He can now call it unplayable. The only way he's going to get out of the bunker is 1 stroke penalty, and he has to go back to where he played his last shot from outside the bunker, which might be back at the tee.
Why can't I take a line to the flag?
Because you have to stay in the bunker. When you declare your ball unplayable, that option, you have to stay in the bunker. The 2 club lengths keeps you in the bunker,
Right.
and that option you must stay in the bunker.
Well, even if that 2 club lengths got you out of the bunker,
Yep.
you have to stay inside the bunker. So you don't get that whole 2 club lengths if part of it's outside.
Then you're gonna drop. So what he's trying to, he's declaring unplayable because it's plugged.
Yeah,
So
He's risking that
he's
again.
trying to,
he's going to lose it. 1 stroke
assuming he
penalty.
thinks it's gonna plug again, I guess.
Yeah. All right, the abnormal ground conditions, Rule 25 is very similar, but there's a little wrinkle in this one. For relief, if the ball's in the bunker, the player must lift, if he's going to take relief, and drop it either without penalty within 1 club length of and not near the hole in the nearest point of relief. Nearest point of relief must be in the bunker, the ball must be dropped in the bunker. Or, if complete relief is impossible, the whole bunker is filled with water, or all parts of the bunker that are dry are closer to the hole. If complete relief is impossible, he drops it as near as possible to the spot where the ball lay, but not near the hole on a part of the course in the bunker that affords maximum available relief. So free drop, he can go from 4 inches of water to a ½ inch of water for free in the bunker. He cannot go closer to the hole. He gets that for free. Or under penalty of 1 stroke outside, just the same as with the obstruction. That's, you can drop right behind the bunker, keeping the point where it lay in the water. That's why we don't play tournaments with a whole bunker filled with water. Ever.
We play them, we would just declare them.
Or we declare not playing.
You declare them ground under repair through the green.
Yep.
Why don't you declare them just ground under repair?
because the hazards are not considered through the green.
Yeah,
Or
but
bunkers
what
are
would
not.
happen if you just declared the ground under repair?
Yeah, it's still driving the bunker somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, so
And
you
there may
declare
be
them,
no, there may be no place for them to drop.
yeah,
You keep it as a bunker then.
so they have to be declared as through the green.
Jeanne,
Yeah,
question, again, this is Steve Parks. You have a stoppage of play. You're in the middle of a round, stoppage of play because of rain, a bunker fills up. And this has happened at the Medalist before. In that situation, people have already played through there. You can't go back and say, well, now we're going to just say it's different now for everybody playing forward, or can you?
well, I know there's a decision in there about after a suspension of play, worsening conditions, that players have to just deal with it. I'm hoping that the tournament committee would go out there and, if a bunker filled with water, not make people drop their ball in the puddle.
Right.
We did that to women's at the University of Michigan. After the storm came in, remember, we declared the bunkers there on 17.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
You could, as condition, that's.
Yeah, ground under repair through the green.
Down under repair.
Yeah, we got so much water, you couldn't play in that bunker on the left-hand side of 17.
Yeah. And was anybody in those bunkers?
Mhm.
So what'd you do, give them a free drop outside?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Gene?
Yeah?
This is Tom Hamilton again.
Hey, Tom.
When using a club to measure one stroke in a hazard or in the bunker, when measuring that one club length, can club touch the sand? You lay the club down in the sand, or do you hover it above the sand?
There's no penalty if you wind up touching the sand when measuring. That's one of the exceptions. Back under 13.4.
Oh,
There's no penalty if the player touches the ground or loose impediments to prevent falling, in removing an obstruction, in measuring.
oh, in measuring. Okay, thank you.
Gene?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Charlie Dupree.
Hi, Charlie.
On your example on 25-1, the only example they give is going back, keeping the spot between them and the hole. And they can't go back to the teeing ground with one stroke?
What, if they declare it unplayable?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. That's
Okay, but on your sheet 20 on B, on penalty of one, no, yeah, go down a little bit more. On 25-1 in your B example, you're in 24.
Sorry.
Yep, on B, you give the example in B of only going back, keeping that spot between the hole, no limit. That's abnormal ground conditions, one stroke, but they can't do the two club lengths and they can't go back to the teeing ground?
This is, the thing that you're reading here is an option under Rule 25. Under 28, they can go back to the tee. You're mixing up two rules here. Under 25, the ball is in casual water. They can go to the maximum available relief or the nearest point of relief plus one club length. They have to stay in the bunker. Or they can operate under B, dropping behind the bunker with one's penalty. Now, the other option was, suppose they dropped it under the first option. They went from 3 inches of water into a half an inch of water. They
Right.
had free drop. And now he just says, I don't want to play this anymore. He cannot take any other option under this rule, but he can declare it unplayable and take any of those three, one of which is back to where he last played from outside the bunker.
The ultimate penalty and stroke is the same whether he does this or calls it unplayable, though, right? It's only one stroke.
Yep.
The distance comes if he goes back to the tee or if he goes behind. And with one calls it unplayable, can he do 2 club lengths to the side of the trap?
No.
Say when you're in the bunker under unplayable, you gotta stay in or go back.
You have to stay in the bunker under 2 out of the 3 options. One of them is the 2 club lengths and one is keeping the point between. You must stay in the bunker. His only way to get out there is to take stroke and distance.
You gotta go all the way back.
Yeah.
If you take it unplayable. Gotcha. Okay, so that's a little bit of a difference of how you call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There are several decisions under this that the whole bunker as GUR is 25/13, if you want to know where that one is. Let's look at 25 1B9. Player who invokes the first option then wishes to invoke second option. Player's calls in a bunker completely covered by casual water. Under the first option, he drops on ground in the bunker, affording maximum available relief. He then decides he would have been better off to invoke the second option and drop behind the bunker. May he invoke the second option? No. He's not entitled to invoke one option, and then, if he does not like the result, invoke the other. Therefore, 25 no longer applies. The player must either play it as it lies or then proceed under the unplayable ball rule, and he gets that 1 stroke, and he has all of those options. So when changing relief options, if you haven't put a ball into play, you can change your relief options. If you have dropped or placed in the wrong place, you can change your relief options. If you're taking relief from a lateral hazard and you drop the ball 3 club lengths from where you last crossed the margin, taking that option, and an official comes up to you and says, you just dropped in the wrong place, and you said, well, if I drop it within 2, I'm going to have a terrible stance. You can change options because you have dropped in the wrong place.
But you're allowed to correct that before you make another stroke.
You're allowed to correct it, and you can change options at that point. You can also change options if you haven't put a ball into play, but you can't change options if it's a redropping. In other words, I'm taking relief from the lateral hazard, I'm dropping within 2 club lengths and it hits my foot. So I now have to redrop. I cannot decide now, I would rather take one or the other. Because that's a redropping. I have started to proceed correctly, and I have to continue on with the redropping.
Is that specifically the eraser rule 20-6?
Mm-hmm.
You can change your option if you've dropped in the wrong place.
It's not just under Rule 26.
20-6
20-6.
Eraser rule.
Oh. What are, I'm not
20-6
yeah.
allows you to change your option.
Yes. No, well, it's not really. Yeah.
If you do something wrong.
I mean, that's, if you drop in the wrong place or any other way, not in accordance with the rules, and you haven't played it yet, you can fix it. Yes, that's where that authority comes from. Yeah. Okay.
Jeanne, one more thing. Under 25-1 in your A example, if in the drop the ball rolls closer, do you still get the three drops and place it after the third? Or 2 and 1?
2. Yeah.
2 drops and then place it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. If it is known or virtually certain that a ball that has not been found, so now we're dealing with a ball lost in an abnormal ground condition, the player may take relief under this rule. If it goes down a gopher hole, that's at Rule 25, hole made by a burrowing animal, and the ball's gone. If he elects to do so, the spot where the ball last crossed the outermost limits of the abnormal ground condition must be determined, and for the purpose of applying this rule, the ball is deemed to lie at this spot, and the player must proceed as follows. Okay? It's much more visual if you think about when the ball is lost in casual water. The ball is gone, so you can't take the nearest point of relief. If the ball is lost, you don't know where it is. You haven't seen it. So you can't take the nearest point of relief. So that's when you deem the ball to lie where it entered the abnormal ground condition. Just consider the ball lies there, then you take your nearest point from there. Okay. Under ball unplayable. If your ball's unplayable in the bunker, you have all three. However, two of them you have to drop in the bunker. You need to know that because a player might ask you out there, let's say he's declaring his ball unplayable for some other reason, and if he asks you, can I drop it in the bunker? The answer is yes. If he's taking relief, let's say he's behind a tree, and there's a lot of long grass around, and he'd prefer to play out of the sand, he may drop it in the bunker. As long as that bunker is, within the one of the nearest point of relief and all that. No, it's within the two club lines. We're doing unplayable, yeah. Then look at 28/10. Competitor deems his ball unplayable in the bunker. When he's proceeding under the two club lengths or dropping behind, he drops outside the bunker and plays it. Where 28B and C require that a ball be dropped in and played from the bunker. Generally, if the ball is played from outside the bunker, the penalty should be disqualification for a serious breach of Rule 28 unless rectified. However, if the position of the ball after it is dropped out of the bunker is not substantially different from what it would have been if the competitor had invoked the stroke and distance option, he incurs the penalty stroke prescribed by Rule 28, an additional penalty of 2 for a breach of that rule. So, I thought, what does that mean? Not substantially different. He must have made it sideways, shanked it into the bunker.
Or skulled it or something.
Or skulled. And he's just dropped out, and he's actually probably no closer to the hole than he was if he had taken stroke and distance. So they're giving him this out, not to disqualify him. You get the 1 for 28 and 2 for finding the wrong place under Rule 28. So a total of 3 strokes. I can't imagine that happening, but it obviously had to have happened.
Yeah, or you wouldn't have the decision.
That's right. Under 20-2, the dropped ball must be redropped if it rolls into and comes to rest in a bunker or water hazard, or a dropped ball must be redropped if it rolls out of and comes to rest out of the bunker, if you're attached to drop in a bunker. Now, 20-3, placing and replacing. If the original lie of the ball to be placed or replaced in the bunker has been altered, the original lie must be recreated as nearly as possible and the ball placed in that lie. If it is impossible to determine the spot where the ball is to be placed or replaced, the ball must be dropped. That's why whenever the player is moving a rake and the ball is lying up against the rake, have him mark the ball so he doesn't have to drop it, so he can just replace it. If the ball, when placed, fails to come to rest on the spot on which it was placed in the bunker, there's no penalty and the ball must be replaced. If it still fails to come to rest, it must be placed in the bunker at the nearest spot where it can be placed at rest that is not near the hole. That usually comes into play when the ball is up against the rake on the front bank of the bunker. It's hanging up on the rake. And obviously, You move the rake and the ball's gonna roll all the way down. So now you replace it and it rolls down. You replace it, it rolls down. You do it twice. Then after that, you start moving the ball. Not until you find it. You can't let him press it into the bunker. And probably he's gonna wind up all the way in the bottom where he would have been.
Where it rolled down in the first place, yeah.
Yep.
Goes
But
to
if it's on the other
so
bank, you have a
if it's
problem.
on the face of the
Yeah.
bunker,
Yep,
not in the bunker.
you're in the bunker. No,
You're in the bunker.
you're in the sand. You're in the
Oh,
sand.
what if I'm outside the bunker on
Well,
a
then,
face and the rake is up there, so it's on the, it's in
okay.
the grass
Oh, you're
above the bunker, not in the bunker. And
You replace, you pick up the ball out of the bunker, that is probably rolled down into the bunker from the bank.
so my first thing, again, is gonna mark the ball,
Mark it,
remove the rake.
Yep.
And then I can
the ball rolls.
rolls and it rolls
If
in
it
the
rolls
bunker.
into the bunker, you can clean it. When you take it out.
Right.
And then you replace it. And it rolls down again, put it back again. Now, after 2 times, you now start looking for the nearest place where it will remain at rest. And you might not want to go this way, you might have to go sideways. Because if it's a real steep bank, it's not going to stay anywhere there. Yeah. You might wind up going 5 yards before you find a place. And then I think I gave you that's the decision I,
Didn't you have that in there?
20-3B8.
You had that as gifts?
Yeah, we talked about that.
We've already talked about that one? Okay, let's look at 20-5. The only deal there is when a player elects or is required to make his next stroke from where a previous stroke was made and that place was a bunker, the ball must be dropped. Player plays out of a bunker and sculls it across the green into a water hazard. And he doesn't like any of his other water hazard options. He chooses to come back to the bunker. He has to drop it. Okay, searching for the ball covered by sand. If a player's ball lying anywhere on the course is believed to be covered by sand to the extent that he cannot find it, he may without penalty touch, move sand. If the ball is found and identified, the player must create the lie as nearly as possible by replacing the sand. If the ball is moved during the touching or moving of the sand while searching for or identifying or during the recreation, there's no penalty. The ball must be replaced, the lie created, and you can just leave a little putt. So sand is okay. You can do whatever you need to find that ball in sand. And notice it doesn't say in the bunker. This covers sand in the desert. Anywhere by sand. Now, this is the one that got changed. In a hazard, if the player's ball is believed to be covered by loose impediments in the fall, full leaves, to the extent that you cannot find or identify, you may, without penalty, touch or move loose impediments in order to find or identify the ball. The ball is found or identified, the player must replace the loose impediments. If the ball is moved during the touching or moving of the loose impediments while searching for or identifying it, Rule 18.2 applies. Penalty stroke. 1 stroke penalty. If the ball is moved during the replacement of the loose impediments, there is no penalty. So while he's looking, he moves his ball and gets a stroke penalty. If he doesn't move his ball, and he just is now putting the stuff back and the ball moves, no penalty. They did this to make it consistent. In the fall, if you're playing golf and you move your ball while you're searching for it and you lose impediments through the green, you're going to get a penalty. If you're looking for your ball in a water hazard and you cause it to move by moving loose impediments, you're going to get a penalty. So now you get a penalty in the bunker also, as of I think 4 years ago, if you're searching for it under loose impediments. But sand is fine.
This qualifies as one of those shitty rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one, I think that one will change in 18.
I sure hope so.
I would think so.
That's a guarantee.
Jeannie, that's 12.1B. Right, your sheet up there shows it as 12.1A. That's
You
12.1B.
gotta go one more.
Out of the ground.
No, that was,
This-
That was the decision.
that's a decision. That right there is 12-1B.
Yeah, it's 12-1, it's 12-1B, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry about that. Okay, now, in keeping with my old tradition, I have a little quiz.
Yeah.
Here we go. I don't know whether you want to go around the room and each take one or just, no, shut up.
I heard the groans.
Honestly, you didn't like that. Okay.
We heard the groans.
In stroke play, a player's ball lies in the water hazard. Before playing his ball, he takes several practice swings, each time touching the ground and causing leaves to move in the hazard. He also removes several strands of tall grass with his hand, improving the area of his backswing. What is the ruling? 2, 4, or 6?
4.
Two separate strokes or two separate actions, so it's 4 strokes.
4, very good. All right. In a 4-ball match, a player's ball and his partner's ball lie in the same bunker. The opponent's ball. What?
The opponent's fault, yeah, it's a football match.
Poor guy.
I'm glad I didn't print that.
Poor guy.
This is right off the USJ website.
He's lying down.
It's on the putting green. The player forgets that his ball is in the bunker and lets the stone. Whoops.
Lying in the bunker next to the ball.
Stone Ying.
It's just,
Don't you know what that is?
yeah. It's the other half of Yang.
Because in our case, in our tournaments, what do we declare stones to be?
Loose impediments.
No.
Obstructions.
Obstructions. I've always thought that was weird because there's no way a stone is an obstruction, but if you call them a loose impediment, you can't touch it. But the answer to this, the correct answer is the player who lifted the stone is disqualified for the hole, and his partner also incurs a penalty if the infraction assisted the partner's play.
But in most of the cases we have, it wouldn't be, right?
Right, it wouldn't
Because
be a penalty for.
It wouldn't be a penalty at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Hope they're better after this.
Yeah,
In stroke play, a player takes relief from a lateral water hazard. He properly drops the ball, but it rolls and comes to rest 3 club lengths from where it first struck the ground. He lifts the ball and drops it as before, with the same result. He lifts the ball again and drops it as before, but this time it comes to rest in the position not requiring redropping, and he plays it. What is the ruling? Now think before you answer here. 1, 2, or 3?
Well, there is a penalty.
Well, I guess 1 for sure, because of the.
1 and 2.
I think it's 2 strokes.
How many?
No, it's 1.
No, it's
So
3.
a total of 3, because
He
he
lifted his,
played
lifted his
from a
ball
wrong
and play.
place.
1 for the water hazard, and 2 because
Played from a wrong
played
place.
from the wrong place. Very good. You can't forget the water hazard.
I'm just thinking about the redropping.
I don't want to delay this long, but decision 20-2C/1 suggests that
Wait, give me the.
20-2C/1, so page 330,
Okay,
suggests that, so you, I think you're saying here that it's gone past the 2 club lengths, is that right?
Right.
This says there are situations where ball within 2 club lengths of margin can come to rest 4 club lengths from the hazard without the player being required to drop out of the rule.
Yeah, but that's a dropping area. That's dropping area. Isn't 2C1/1 is a drop zone?
Directly dropped and does not roll into any of the positions listed in, well, this one did. It is in play and must not be redropped, in particular under.
Well, it's a dropping zone.
Is that what he's talking about? Are they talking about a dropping zone here?
Yeah.
I don't think so. What?
22C1 does.
Oh, you're 22 or 20?
No, well, I thought Lee was talking about
This
20.
is saying if it drops out, rolls outside the area, yeah.
So
as far as
drop
the kid
circle.
runs.
Yeah.
Drop within the dropping zone and rolls outside,
That,
that's
you
fine.
don't, you
Yeah.
don't re-drop.
Right.
If it just doesn't roll
Yeah, it says
out,
it comes to rest 3 club lengths from where it
three
struck the
club
ground.
lengths, and he's only, that's a redrop.
Right.
When it goes, one of those 7 times when you have to redrop.
Right, so he took his, if it's a lateral water hazard, and he took his 2 clubs, but from that point, it rolled another 3. He's actually 5 clubs from where it entered the margin of the hazard. But it's the 3 where it rolled that's relevant, not the 2 where he dropped it. It can't roll more than 2 clubs from the point it strikes the course.
Right, but this says that it did, isn't it? Isn't that what it says?
It says it rolled 3 club lengths from where it first struck the ground. That's one of the 7 times when he must redrop.
And it did the same thing on a second redrop.
Do you see in your answer in your decision, Lou, where it says, and does not roll into any of the positions listed in 20-2C? Those positions in 20-2C are into a hazard, out of a hazard, onto a putting green, out of bounds, back into the condition from which relief is taken, more than 2 club lengths from where it first hit the ground. Those are all redrops.
Okay.
So Jeanne, I guess I'm confused now. If there's a drop area, circle, I drop my ball, I have to drop my ball in the circle.
Yes.
Ball has to stay in the circle? It can go up to 2
club
club lengths from where it hit,
Yep.
even outside of that
Yep.
circle, and it's playable.
Yep.
Got it.
And it's from where it hit. It's not from the
Right.
edge of that circle.
No, from where it hit.
That's why you always
It
tell
has to
people
be
to be
inside
careful
the
about where they drop within a drop zone. If Tiger Woods on 15 didn't want the drop zone because the drop zone was tilted down toward the pond. And he didn't like that lie. That's the reason he stepped back and dropped the ball.
Right.
And he couldn't take the lie on the left-hand side by the grandstands on 16 because he didn't have a line between the flagstick and the point he had to drop, except the grandstand.
Jeannie,
Yeah.
on number 3, is the real issue that he dropped it 3 times instead of placing it after the second one?
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause
Yes.
he's now, he's
So
required,
he's
after
waiting
2,
for
he's
the wrong
required to-
position, which is 2 strokes.
That's 2 strokes, and then the 3rd stroke is the water
For
hazard.
the water hazards. Huh?
Stroke.
Right, okay. Forgot that we were talking water hazard. Right, okay. Thank you.
And Jeanne, the specific decision is 20-2C/2.
Okay.
If he drops the 3rd time, what is the ruling?
Okay. It's the same deal, and it's 2 strokes if you drop instead of place, or place instead of when you're supposed to drop.
Doesn't matter, still too.
Okay, a ball is visible in casual water, but the player can't retrieve it without it being known or virtually certain that the ball is in the casual water. The player must treat his ball as lost. True or false?
True.
Yeah. A caddy shared by players on opposite sides in a 4-ball match accidentally moved the ball belonging to one of the players. There's no penalty. True or false? False. Good. The drop.
Depends on what happens, right? If it's on the green, is that different now, right?
They haven't reflected.
But there's no penalty.
The local rule is in place.
They haven't updated their test score. They haven't updated their test score.
Yeah. Okay, a drop ball must be redropped without penalty if it rolls onto and comes to rest on the putting.
True.
Okay. The committee may not make a local rule granting relief from aeration hose.
False.
Right. When 2 players take relief from a water hazard, the order of play is determined by.
The relative position before relief.
Yep. Yep. In match, what about Craig and I are playing in the same group, and we both hit it into the water hazard, and we're sharing a caddy, and he gives my ball to Craig and Craig's ball to me, and we both play him. Any problem?
No, not at that point.
You could substitute the ball after the fact. It was in water hazard.
A ball.
It's okay.
Yep.
It's okay, because the rule says what? It doesn't say drop the ball, it says drop a ball. Okay. Match play, nine, are we doing nine?
Yep.
Match play, a player removes a loose impediment from a water hazard while his ball lies in the hazard. He decides not to play his ball there, lifts it, and properly takes relief under the water hazard rule. What is the ruling?
You stroke it.
Match play.
Oh, it says a player.
It's a one-stroke penalty unless he decides he's defined ahead of time. He's gonna
Match
do it.
play, it's gotta be loss of
Match play.
hold.
Exactly. That's the decision that, we were all. That's
What happens, you got the questions on one page and then you go to the next page.
When you're doing these rules, if you don't rule school, player is used in either. It's fellow competitor and opponent that determines, but I don't think they do that anymore. I think they actually tell you it's not a stroke play. I talked to Ginger yesterday.
Oh, Jesus.
Ginger was the one that wrote those horrible exams for years ago. The footprint of a burrowing animal, reptile, or bird is considered an irregularity of surface from which there is relief without penalty. False. False. Very good. Didn't hear as many answers that time.
No, he was just.
Footprints aren't
Irregularity.
part of, they're not part of a whole path or runway made by a burrowing animal, reptile, or a bird.
Unless there's a local rule for that.
Unless there's a local.
It's a new local rule for your print.
Yes.
Right. There is.
Yep.
We use it.
Yeah.
The committee may not make a local rule for rear-time play prohibiting removal of the flag stick to reduce traffic around the hole when the putting greens are soft.
True.
False.
True. True. Actually.
Makes 33.
Which is correct regarding a ball which is lost. Can you all read those?
Yeah. It didn't say that he declared it as a provisional.
The first one's true. What's wrong with the second one? When a provisional ball is placed further from the hole? It's when it's played from a place closer to the hole. Yeah. When a substitute ball is dropped under the lost ball and played then within the 5 minutes which the original spot.
That's right.
Okay. Which is correct regarding a club that a player may use for measuring.
He may use any club provided the ball is dropped and played for a spot that could have been reached from one of his own clubs.
Yep.
Selected from the round.
Yes.
I thought I saw somewhere where you could use any club. Anyone's club.
It's longer than that, longer than 1 year.
You have,
Not longer than 1 year.
it has to be, it all has to wind up someplace that could have been reached by something in your life.
Right.
A player's ball lies.
Katie,
Yeah.
back on 12, what was, I couldn't hear what your answer was back on 12.
A ball is lost. When a ball is put into play under a stroke and distance procedure in Rule 27-1, the original ball is lost and the other ball becomes the ball in play.
And that's because he didn't deem it a provisional ball?
Well, there's no situation. They were just asking, there were 3 statements and 2 of them were wrong and 1 of them was right.
Okay. Okay.
Anytime you have taken, there are 5 ways the ball becomes lost. One of them is once you put a ball into play under a stroke and distance penalty.
Okay, gotcha.
They're all in the definition of lost ball. Okay, a player's ball lies through the green, but a bunker is situated between the player's ball and the hole. Which one of the following is correct?
First one.
Yeah, he may remove loose impediments.
The
because
first
he got in the
one.
bunker.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yep.
He wasn't in the bunker, yeah.
Anybody disagree? No. Not with you. Okay, a player was unable to find his ball because another player played it. Even if the search has lasted more than 5 minutes, he does not have a lost ball.
False.
False. In stroke play, a player picks up his ball that is overhanging the hole without holding out. After he returns his scorecard, the spectator brings this to the attention of the committee. What is the rule?
You could hold an umbrella yourself while you're putting.
That's a
No,
no.
you're
I can't hear down here.
Which of these sentences?
That's true.
disqualified.
B,
DQ.
because they changed the rule, right? That if you didn't know that it wasn't a penalty, it would be just.
He never rolled out.
I would say no, he has not.
That's
He
three.
interviewed.
He never hold out.
finished the hole.
He didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Right.
DQ.
Okay, in the ring. Okay, Jeff.
I did have that last one right, by the way.
With one hand, is that all right?
Yep.
Okay.
I did have that last one right too, by the way. I just can't hear.
You did.
I don't hear out of this ear over here, you know.
If a competitor and a fellow competitor were to agree not to lift the ball, it would assist the play of one of them. Each should be penalized 2 strokes.
False.
False. DQ.
It'd be false, it'd be DQ.
Yeah.
DQ. Better DQ. 22.
Is this true or false?
This one? False.
Also.
22-6.
That's right. The decision on that is 22/6. It probably says unless they knew it was wrong or something like that, does it?
Based on that, it doesn't say that.
If they were to agree to not lift the ball, that would assist the play of one of them, each should be penalized 2 strokes.
Okay.
I'm thinking it should have been DQ'd.
It is.
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
They
yes,
are.
it's
They are.
a DQ.
Yeah.
It's a DQ.
Yeah.
So the statement itself is false.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. What's on the
Yeah.
next week?
Your question. Hold on a second, let me just make sure again. Steve, we'll go ahead and send the answers out to those questions in the next email, so that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sarah.
Yep, so next week we'll go over, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's 14, 10, 11, 12, 16, and 17, I believe. So a lot more rules, but a lot more smaller rules. One quick, literally housekeeping thing. The GAM is looking to get a new cleaning service for our office, and we were just wondering if you guys had any cleaning services that you maybe use for the places that you used to work at, or even for your house. If you do, if you could just let me know, that'd be great. We're just looking to find a better cleaner for our office. So
Let you know.
yeah. Please. So yeah, but other than that, let's all give Jeanne a round of applause.
You too, Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you for everything, Kyle. And Jean.
Thank you, Jean.
Right.